Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So our mission today is really custom tailored for you, the listener, because we are looking way past the sensational headlines of any single scandal.
Right, the stuff that usually grabs all the attention.
Exactly. Instead, we're setting out to examine the underlying structural mechanics of power, of social immunity, and really institutional failure.
It's a pretty ambitious framework.
Yeah, okay.
We are trying to map out how modern systems of accountability function, or I guess more accurately, how they systematically fail to function when they're stress tested by just immense wealth.
To do that, we are analyzing a really highly detailed essay originally written by Eli Goldstein on Eli's Substack.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which was subsequently republished by Liberty's Lens. And, because a single perspective rarely captures the whole picture, we're also going to dissect a very prominent, highly engaged reader comment that fundamentally challenges the author's primary thesis.
Which is great because the source material is dense. I mean, it touches on some deeply entrenched systemic issues that span across really multiple sectors of society.
It does. And because of the nature of the topic, the text references politically charged elements that span several different presidential administrations.
Right, involving figures from both the left and the right.
Exactly. So I want to establish our analytical baseline right up front for you. Our role in this deep dive is to act as your impartial guides to the text.
We are not here to endorse any specific political framework.
No, we are not taking sides, and we are absolutely not making independent accusations.
Right.
Our job is simply to impartially report and unpack the arguments, the theories, and the perspectives presented in the original source material.
We're basically dissecting the architecture of the argument, just looking at the structural claims being made about power and justice.
Okay, let's unpack this. The core concept Goldstein introduces to anchor his entire argument is something he calls the Epstein class.
The Epstein class.
Right, yeah. The text uses this term to describe this incredibly insular network of elites, politicians, and billionaires who moved in the exact same social and professional circles as Jeffrey Epstein.
Right, the circles that overlap.
Exactly. And Goldstein uses a pretty striking contrast to illustrate the anomaly of this group.
Yeah, this part was fascinating.
He points out that if an ordinary person like someone working a standard 9-to-5 befriended a convicted sex offender, did business with them, or traveled with them, the social and professional exile would be absolute and immediate.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the community would shun them.
Right.
Their employer would likely terminate them just to avoid the association.
Yeah.
The friction of that choice would be felt instantly by an average person.
But, when billionaires did it, the text notes, it was smoothly rebranded.
Yeah, it was just called networking.
Right. Or philanthropy.
Exactly.
I mean, the author argues this phenomenon reveals a culture where extreme wealth generates a literal force field against accountability.
He's asking us to look past the individual crimes of one man, right, and examine the broader ecosystem that permitted those crimes to continue unhindered for years.
To understand that ecosystem, we have to start by analyzing the social environment of the ultra-wealthy themselves.
Right, the psychology of it.
Yeah. The text spends a significant amount of time exploring how possessing immense generational wealth fundamentally alters a person's psychological and, moral expectations.
It changes their relationship with consequences entirely.
The essay grounds this psychological theory by listing some highly recognizable figures who surfaced in the Epstein files or, related reporting. People like Bill Gates, Deepak Chopra, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk.
And we should pause here, just adhering strictly to the author's own legal and ethical disclaimers within the text.
Yes, please.
Goldstein is not alleging criminal activity against these specific individuals.
Right. That distinction is paramount to the essay's actual thesis.
Exactly. The author is utilizing their documented proximity to Epstein to question the concept of social immunity.
Right.
The analytical focus is on the fact that these individuals were engaging socially or philanthropically with a man who was already a convicted entity, and yet they felt no immediate social pressure to distance themselves.
It is the environment itself that Goldstein is critiquing.
Right.
When I was reading through his notes on how insulated these networks are, I kept returning to a specific analogy.
Oh, what was it?
Well, it feels like living your entire life inside this exclusive VIP room where the building management has intentionally disconnected the fire alarms.
Oh, I like that.
Right. The people socializing inside that room never think about the building burning down. And it isn't necessarily because they are inherently malicious people.
Right. It's because they have never once had to hear an alarm go off.
Exactly. They have completely lost the instinct to look for the exits.
Building on that analogy, it's like because they never hear the alarm, they eventually forget what smoke even smells like.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
You know, power doesn't merely expand what a person is capable of doing. It fundamentally corrupts their baseline expectation of what will happen to them if they cross a line.
And the text makes a really sharp sociological observation here.
It really does. It points out that in these ultra-elite circles, reputation management is entirely decoupled from personal behavior.
Right.
Your reputation is no longer something you maintain by acting ethically.
No, it's an asset.
Exactly. It's an asset guarded by a sophisticated infrastructure of crisis PR firms, non-disclosure agreements, and aggressive legal teams.
You essentially outsource your morality to your staff.
You outsource the risk of your behavior, yeah.
Wow.
The text illustrates how, within this specific environment, gross mistakes are immediately reframed for public consumption as mere misunderstandings.
Right. Destructive behavior is rebranded as the eccentricity of a genius.
Exactly. And because of that constant multi-layered insulation, the fundamental internal monologue of the individual undergoes a chilling shift.
How?
Well, for the average person, the internal question before taking an action is usually, is this right? Or will I get caught?
Right. Basic morality or fear of consequences.
But for the ultra-insulated elite, the text argues the question morphs entirely into, can I get away with this?
Shifting the baseline from morality to pure logistics.
Exactly. Do I have the capital to absorb the fallout of this action?
That is a radical rewiring of the human operating system.
It really is.
But, if that VIP room environment explains the psychology of the individuals, how does the text explain the institutions that are supposedly designed to police them?
Right, the oversight.
Yeah, if the elites feel invincible, why do the actual systems of justice and oversight validate that feeling by standing down?
Well, we have to move from the individual psychology of wealth to the structural reality of institutional paralysis.
Okay.
This is where Goldstein's essay moves from sociological theory into the actual mechanics of government and media.
And the source material gets highly specific about political cross-contamination at this point.
Yes, it does.
The author includes a transcript quote from a congressional hearing. It features Representative Thomas Massie discussing the Department of Justice with Pam Bondi.
Right, focusing on Merrick Garland's DOJ.
Yeah, and Massie asserts, and I'm quoting the text directly here, this goes over 4 administrations. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades.
Wow, that's a massive claim.
Right. Now, again, maintaining our neutral stance, we are simply relaying the source's inclusion of this quote.
Right, we aren't verifying the existence of a multi-decade cover-up.
Exactly. But, reading a claim like that spanning multiple rival administrations, my immediate reaction is, skepticism.
Sure.
It sounds like a Hollywood script. A smoky room filled with powerful villains stamping top secret on manila folders.
Right, sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does Goldstein actually explain a failure of this magnitude without relying on the trope of a massive coordinated conspiracy?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the author specifically rejects the Hollywood conspiracy model.
Oh, he does.
He introduces a vital distinction between coordinated conspiracy and institutional cowardice.
Okay, cowardice.
Yeah. We have a societal tendency to anthropomorphize our institutions. We say the Department of Justice decided, or the media ignored.
Right.
But institutions do not make decisions. The human beings employed inside them do.
And human beings are flawed.
Exactly. And they are intensely vulnerable to professional and social pressure.
They are bureaucrats with mortgages, career aspirations, and, bosses who are appointed by politicians.
Precisely. Goldstein points out that when the accused is an ordinary citizen without leverage, the machinery of justice operates with ruthless efficiency.
Right. The system works.
But when the accused is highly powerful or deeply intertwined with political donors, cabinet officials, and elite philanthropic networks, a very natural human hesitation sets in. For the prosecutor or the regulator, their career trajectory is suddenly at risk.
Yeah.
Departmental funding might be threatened. Complex, mutually beneficial political relationships are put on the line.
It's the friction of the VIP room pushing back against the investigator.
Exactly.
There is a specific line in the essay that distills this perfectly. It says, warnings become whispers, files get buried.
That phrase captures the passive nature of institutional failure so well.
Yeah, it really does.
A cover-up doesn't require a direct, nefarious order from a shadowy cabal. It often just requires widespread institutional cowardice.
Right.
An investigator decides to delay a subpoena until after an election.
Sure.
A prosecutor requests one more round of redundant evidence gathering. Everyone in the chain of command assumes someone else will eventually intervene or that the system will, organically correct itself.
And because of that collective silent hesitation, secrecy becomes the default administrative policy.
Exactly. Delay becomes a functional form of immunity.
Wow. And prestige acts as a literal shield against inquiry.
Yes.
The text breaks down the resulting two-tier system of justice into a very clear taxonomy. It states, the wealthy get discretion, the famous get doubt, the connected get time, and the vulnerable get ignored.
We need to define the mechanics of those terms because they represent the actual levers of inequality.
Let's do it. What does getting time mean?
Getting time means a well-funded legal team can file endless motions, dragging out proceedings for years until the plaintiffs run out of money or the public simply loses interest.
Just wearing them down.
Exactly. And getting doubt means public relations firms can feed narratives to the media, framing serious allegations as a complex he said, she said dispute rather than a straightforward criminal investigation.
Muddying the waters.
Right. The institutions inherently defer to the prestige of the accused rather than objectively evaluating the credibility of the victim.
So Goldstein paints a very convincing picture of this Epstein class.
He really does.
He places the blame squarely on this culture of extreme wealth, insulated networks, and the resulting institutional cowardice.
Right.
But, I found myself questioning if that framework is entirely complete.
Oh.
Yeah, if we solely blame billionaires and cowardly bureaucrats, aren't we letting the rest of society off the hook?
That's a very fair point.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The source material introduces a fascinating counter-perspective from a reader named Kelly Windsor, who pushes back significantly on the author's primary focus.
Her commentary provides a crucial sociological pivot for the entire deep dive.
Yeah.
She really challenges the boundaries of Goldstein's thesis.
Kelly argues that focusing so heavily on extreme wealth actually sugarcoats a much uglier foundational truth about our culture.
Right.
She points out that it does not take billions of dollars to get away with abusing women in modern society.
No, it doesn't.
She asks a very pointed question. Do you know how many rapists actually go to jail without having a private jet?
It's a sobering question.
It is. Her core argument is that while the extreme wealth in this specific scandal amplified the damage, the underlying disease is everyday, systemic misogyny, racism, and patriarchy.
She is forcing a reevaluation of the judicial baseline. Kelly's argument is that in our current cultural framework, certain demographics of victims have never been assigned the same inherent value as others.
Right.
And that's entirely independent of the perpetrator's bank account.
Exactly.
This doesn't necessarily invalidate Goldstein's point about elite immunity, but it radically recontextualizes it.
So how does her point interact with Goldstein's focus on wealth then? Are they competing theories, or do they layer on top of each other?
Oh, they are deeply symbiotic.
Okay.
Kelly is essentially arguing that a vulnerable person, particularly women and minorities, requires immense wealth or status just to receive the basic baseline protections that the justice system is supposed to guarantee to everyone.
Wow. So if you lack that wealth, you are systemically unprotected.
Exactly. So when you take that pre-existing foundational devaluation of vulnerable people and you layer the Epstein class wealth and institutional cowardice on top of it, the result is catastrophic.
Yeah.
The elite wealth did not invent the apathy of the justice system. It simply weaponized a societal failure that was already functioning as intended.
The wealth acts as a multiplier.
Yes.
Like if the societal devaluation of victims was the dry brush waiting to catch fire, the elite network was the gasoline poured over it.
That's exactly it.
Kelly's counterargument is vital because it shatters the illusion that if we simply dismantled the billionaire VIP room, the rest of the justice system would suddenly work perfectly for the average person.
Right, because if you repair the VIP room on the top floor, but the foundation of the entire building is structurally biased, you haven't actually solved the root crisis of accountability.
No.
You've just changed who gets to exploit the cracks.
Which transitions us perfectly into examining how Goldstein proposes we actually fix those structural cracks.
Right, the solutions.
Having diagnosed the psychology of the elites, the cowardice of the institutions, and acknowledging the systemic vulnerabilities Kelly pointed out, the text outlines a specific ideological blueprint for preventing this cycle from repeating.
Yeah.
The author champions two primary concepts: progressive populism and radical transparency.
Now, Those terms carry a lot of ideological baggage in modern political discourse, but Goldstein defines them through a highly practical, mechanical lens.
Let's test that practicality then, because progressive populism sounds like a campaign slogan.
It does, yeah.
What does that actually mean structurally for the systems of government and justice we interact with every day? How do you operationalize a concept like that?
Well, within the context of the essay, progressive populism is defined as the fundamental recognition that democratic institutions cannot survive if power is allowed to concentrate in hands that are shielded from continuous questioning.
Okay.
The operational core of this concept is that systems must be designed for human weakness, not elite virtue.
Meaning you engineer the system with the assumption that powerful people will eventually try to exploit it, rather than operating on the honor system and hoping they do the right thing because they attended prestigious universities.
Exactly the opposite of deferring to prestige.
Right.
You do not rely on the benevolence or the philanthropy of the powerful. You rely on the structural integrity of the guardrails.
I see.
You build mandatory, unavoidable friction into the system. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that requirement for systemic friction is where the second concept, radical transparency, becomes the mechanism for enforcement.
I have to push back on the feasibility of radical transparency, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author demands that institutions openly document their decisions, their internal relationships, and critically, their failures.
Yes.
But is that actually workable in the real world?
Wow.
I mean, if every internal Department of Justice email, every corporate deliberation, and every preliminary investigation is immediately made public, doesn't the machinery of society just grind to a halt?
That's a common criticism.
You can't run complex institutions entirely in the public square.
Goldstein actually anticipates that logistical critique.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. He argues that transparency is not about creating an administrative nightmare. It is about fundamentally altering the environment where decisions are made. He offers a compelling synthesis in the text. He says, progressive populism without transparency becomes rage. Transparency without populism becomes paperwork.
Transparency without populism becomes paperwork. That is a sharp distinction.
It really is.
He's saying that if a government agency simply dumps 2 million pages of redacted PDFs onto a website, but the public lacks the systemic power to hold anyone accountable for what's in those pages, it's just a bureaucratic data dump.
Exactly. It provides the illusion of openness without the threat of consequence.
So the synergy of the two concepts is what creates actual accountability.
Right. Goldstein emphasizes the phrase, secrecy is the oxygen of abuse.
That's powerful.
The core argument for radical transparency is that it serves as a preventative architecture, not just a retrospective punishment.
Preventative.
Yes. If elite conflicts of interest were automatically exposed, if early warnings about predators were structurally required to be made public immediately, the dark, quiet environment required for these exploitative networks to operate would cease to exist.
It forces the lights on in the VIP room permanently, so the fire alarms can't be quietly disconnected in the dark.
Exactly.
Taking a step back, the journey through these sources reveals a highly complex ecosystem.
It really does.
We started by examining how generational wealth and insular networks distort an individual's moral baseline, shifting their internal compass from seeking what is right to calculating what they can get away with.
We then explored the mechanics of institutional deference, breaking down how government and media fail, not through grand orchestrated conspiracies, but through the mundane, everyday cowardice of individuals protecting their careers and funding.
Right. And we integrated Kelly Windsor's critical reminder that elite immunity is only so effective because it is built on a pre-existing societal foundation that routinely devalues vulnerable demographics.
And finally, we unpacked Goldstein's blueprint for reform, relying on the friction of progressive populism and the preventative sunlight of radical transparency.
It provides a very comprehensive structural lens for viewing how power protects itself.
It does.
And for you listening, the goal of this deep dive was to demonstrate that understanding this dynamic isn't just about parsing the horrific details of one specific historical scandal.
Oh, not at all.
It is about equipping yourself to recognize the mechanics of power in modern society, understanding why demanding structural accountability from our institutions is a necessity for everyone, regardless of their proximity to wealth or status.
As we conclude today's analysis, there is a final lingering implication hidden within the author's demand for radical transparency that warrants consideration.
Oh, what is the implication?
Well, we discussed the necessity of forcing the lights on in that metaphorical VIP room to prevent abuse.
Right.
But consider the psychological toll of that solution on the broader public.
Well, yeah.
If radical transparency truly became the uncompromising operational standard for all elite institutions starting tomorrow, if every whispered warning, every buried file, and every quiet, cowardly compromise by a respected leader was suddenly exposed to the light of day.
Oh, wow. The sheer volume of failure would be overwhelming.
Exactly. That is the core question. Would witnessing the unfiltered reality of all that institutional cowardice actually restore the public's trust because the truth was finally out in the open?
Right.
Or would the staggering scale of the everyday compromises permanently break our society's faith in the very concept of leadership?
If the public realizes exactly how many respected people heard the fire alarm ringing and simply chose to look the other way to protect their own standing, does that realization burn the concept of institutional authority to the ground?
It's a tough question.
That is a profound and honestly deeply unsettling structural question to leave you with today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.